How do you define a win? Is it I knew them when? Is it like Winnie the Pooh? Is it because of Winn-Dixie? Okay, what do we do to appreciate a win? Hey, everybody, it's Dwight. This is the Broken Brains Monday mental tip for y'alls. Today is the last day of September, by the way, so I'm going to give a plug for our charity of Focus at the end of this brief episode and give you a little intro into what's coming in October. Boo. So, I want to talk about appreciating a win or appreciating when something good happens. This is something we have to practice for ourselves. One of the things that we learn from having anxiety and depression over time is our brain gets trained to hyperfocus on negative outcomes and expectations. This is not bad all by itself, by the way. This could be interpreted as an overreactive amygdala, the limbic system, the survival mechanisms that are connected with anxiety, right? Those are good things. From what I understand, as they research these things about the brain, the amygdala can actually grow bigger when it is provoked more and more and more, especially at a young age. So if you grow up in a tough situation, if you've been into hairy, complicated situations such as combat or abuse or trauma, recovery, there's even some evidence that getting overwhelmed in bureaucracy or red tape, especially when it has to do with your health care, your housing, or other things like that, can trigger these kind of fight or flight responses. And even if that's most of the trauma you've had, if it's significant enough, those things are important and scary, and it can be provoked a lot. And so we get really good at anticipating risk. Another side of this is depression, and people tend to think that people who have depression focus on only the negative parts of life. That's kind of inherent to what we're talking about. But however, I think it's important to note that those with depression do not seem to have a delusional or warped sense of the world. In fact, they oftentimes are more realistic in their assessment of things. Now, hope, motivation levels, energy, those types of things are suppressed with depression. So therefore, our ability to deal with it is often impaired. But generally speaking, our perspective of the world is not impaired, not by depression alone anyway. There's several other things that be complicating factors, but I just think that that is important. Well, those of you who listen to the show know I am not a fan of big affirmations like focus only on the positive, or if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything now, or doubt only your doubts, or, putting it out there that everything will be or has to be positive. There is such a thing called toxic positivity. We've done some discussions on here before. I did an interview a little while ago for the Lamont and Leah podcast where we talked about toxic positivity. Very, very interesting. Two really cool young podcasters that actually focus on using media and social media in a really healthy way to educate yourself about the world, emotional health, that kind of thing. So Lamont and Leah, wonderful podcasters, by the way. But the main reason why I don't really dig on affirmations is they are offered as a fix for having negativity or negative thoughts or negative feelings or depression or anxiety or yada, 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 addiction problems, whatever it is. Now, it's not that they can't be useful if we treat them as nice little aphorisms, little chestnuts that can lead us in a good direction. They're also not as bad if we tend to look into the deeper meaning. I won't belabor you with it here today, but if you listen to the show, you know how I feel about it is what it is. And the reason I do not care for it has nothing to do with the fact that it's not true exactly, because it is true, but the way that it's applied. The way we apply things to shame ourselves for negativity and to think we should embrace only positivity, or at the most neutrality to where life is just, it's fine, it's great, accept it as it is, blah, blah, blah. Accepting as it is a deep, like cognitive, behavioral, psychological kind of appears in DBT, by the way, radical acceptance, those kinds of things. There's a lot to it that as far as practicing it and understanding it at a bit of a deeper level. So let's talk about wins. Wins, something good happens. Do we appreciate it? Do we even notice it? Now, that is true that we do tend to filter those things out just simply often because we're not looking for them. Okay, so I want to say the first principle of appreciating when something goes well is watching for it. One of the things that can actually be an active uh, sort of strategy for depression is to actually actively seek out things that remind us either that the world can be a good place, that there are good people in it, or simply that it is a place that has some type of beauty or something good as well as all the bad things. That's kind of the first principle, is getting to go on a little daily scavenger hunt, if you will, for either good events or things that remind us that good events do happen. So really trying to condition ourselves that I have to make a choice to look for it. Anxiety and depression, particularly, will make that choice for us to notice only the negative things. And that gets into my second little part of this tip. If you want to appreciate wins and appreciate good things that happen, don't think of it as trying to ignore or turn away from the negative things as much as you think about broadening your focus to say, I am already acutely aware. Now, maybe my problem is that I am, toxically positive or optimistic to the point where I don't pay attention to things that could go wrong, to the sense that I don't prepare or maybe even shut down when they happen. That's a different problem. I probably have to find strategies to notice, broaden my view, once again, to take in some of that negativity a bit more and to deal with that kind of thing, the conflicts and the challenges and the problems. But if I'm a person who primarily is drawn only to focus and maybe hyper focus on those things, then I have to push myself to broaden my view the other way. So, what we're trying to do is we're actually trying to get to a healthy sense of balance, because mental health isn't about feeling good all the time. I have a friend, another clinician, who says that he actually tries to move people away sometimes from the concept of my goal in therapy is to be happy. Now, is that an overkill of terminology? I don't know. There's a point to it, right? Which is that mentally healthy doesn't mean happy all the time as a fixed state of being. It may mean that we have strategies that help us to be more balanced in our lives, which may lead to some more happiness, hopefully does, and happiness is a great thing to pursue. But just because I'm unhappy at a given moment doesn't equate to a full relapse into depression or anxiety or anything like that. It can actually mean that I'm having a healthy reaction to a situation that is actually sad or scary or bad. You can easily observe that many things that are good things don't happen without anger, for example. A lot of social advocacy wouldn't happen without anger. A lot of people exiting a toxic or abusive relationship or making hard decisions about how much to expose themselves to friends or family that trigger addiction relapses or things like that, they often start out with some kind of emotion that we might consider negative. Well, a negative response to a negative situation is actually appropriate. It's healthy. Now, do I also broaden that out and say, and can I appreciate the steps that I've taken to try to deal with the situation as well as the negative aspects of the situation? So really, we're looking for restoring a healthy balance. That's the key idea there. There's one last part of appreciating a wins that I want to hit on, and that is to try to get away from a plus and minus system in our head. Many of us tend to focus on good and bad events or good or bad choices as a plus and minus. Well, I did this, but then I did this, and that totally took away from it. This happened, but then later this happened and canceled it out. And that's an interesting thing to try to play with and trying to get ourselves out of the plus and minus game. One of the reasons for this is that if we discount the value of something going well and something going the way we want it to, just because something else did not, we may never make progress in feeling like hope in our lives because we're sort of editing it out and blocking it at that point. Similarly, if we say, oh, something good happened and that totally cancels out something bad, if it's a bad choice that I made, that could actually sabotage relationship building, making amends, and really interfere with our healing. If it's a bad event and we think like, oh, this, whatever, and it cancels it out, and to the point where we don't look at it, we might make errors in our judgment of response to those things too. So there's kind of three aspects of saying, can I appreciate the wins and the high points of what's going on in my life as well as getting stuck in the negative? And once again, they are Number one, to hunt for the wins and to make sure I am noticing them. The second piece being that I am noticing them in addition to the negative things that I will notice, not to shame myself for being aware of the negative or even being drawn to it naturally. And the third, to try not to get into a plus and minus, one thing invalidates the other, and I can only have a good day if all good things happen. That type of thinking, trying to move away from that. So, hope those things are helpful. As it is the last day of September, it's the last day where we're highlighting the charity Horses of Hope in Puerto Rico, which you can go to horsesofhopepr.org to learn more about and support that great program where they bring equine therapy resources working with horses to those who are struggling with either mental health diagnoses or disabilities. And the goal being, and it's at a little to no cost to the individual. So anything that you donate there seems to go right to delivering those services and facilitating that. Pivoting into October, you may have heard my interview with Brian Belt, who is the co-founder of Mental Health Awareness and Creative Arts Gallery, that you can find at stigmafree.art. And that is going to be our charity of focus for October. Brian and the organization, centered in Hudson, New York, focuses on providing art instruction. They have free art classes and things, and also looking at the use of art to help people primarily with addiction problems and other mental health diagnoses to find a way as a creative outlet to deal with that. And as part of that, they promote with the gallery mentality people's ways to share their art, as well as promoting a whole bunch of events and that have to do with substance abuse treatment, recovery, or mental health support in the area too. If you follow them on Facebook, by the way, look up Mental Health Awareness Creative Arts Gallery. You can also find resources and connections to their social media at stigmafree.art. As well as you can find the interview that Brian and I did there as well on this thread. So I was just so impressed with him and the work that they're doing. I wanted to make that a focus charity. So, of course, what that means is that the charities of focus, first of all, go to stigmafree.art, go to horsesofhopepr.org in order to learn more about, to promote on social media, to donate, or to get involved if you're able to do so. The other way that you can support these programs is by supporting this program, actually, by supporting The Broken Brain. If you are particularly a Patreon donor, giving to support the show, 50% of your donation will go to one of these charities. Now, there's kind of two ways you can decide which one. Basically, it automatically 50% of your donation will be applied as long as you are a donor to the organization that we were highlighting in the month when you joined Patreon. If you decide to join Patreon, and if you like one of the other charities that we have focused on, if you are interested in supporting Out Nebraska, for example, or Munchausen by Proxy, or some of those other programs that we've already done, you can also, once you sign up for the Patreon, shoot me a message either through the Patreon system, dwighthurst@gmail.com, or if you prefer to fill out the form at the website, just go to dwighthurst.com/support and specify one of those other ones. I'm not able to just do whatever charity. If you want to recommend a charity to be a charity of focus in a future month, you can sure also do that as well. That's great. But if someone's like, send half of mine to this charity or whatever, just logistically that may get out of hand. So that's the way we're doing it. I don't mind divvying it up or changing it to a different one if you want to at some point. But just understand automatically it will go to that charity unless you specify a different request. Well, this is the last you'll hear from me in September. We will have an episode coming out tomorrow, by the way. And in fact, tomorrow is a real fun one where I talk to Dr. Jessie Gold and some of her work and some things that she written a book and done some other work about fighting and resisting burnout and the importance of embracing ourselves and our own strengths and weaknesses, and that if we can accept ourselves, we can work with ourselves, and just a lot of depth to that and a lot of techniques that she shares. Plus, she was like a real lot of fun to talk to. We really had a good time recording it. So that will be coming out tomorrow. And then, the Thursday History lesson will be later in the week. I'm going to be diving into the ASAM and what that is, which spoiler alert, it has to do with substance abuse and a way of assessing and treating substance abuse. It's an interesting history and an interesting tool that he's used. So that is going to be coming up on this week on The Broken Brain. Thanks for being here and listening, supporting in whatever ways that you do, whether it's just listening and enjoying, whether you share the show with others, give us a positive rating on your platform of choice, or especially for those of you donating in Patreon or other ways to help the program to move on forward. As always, you can go to dwighthurst.com/support. My website is myname.com, and trying to always put lots of interesting and useful resources up on there for everybody, many of which are low cost or free, and just love to be involved with you as a community. So thank you again for being you, which ties in with the episode tomorrow. Have a great day.